Have you any idea how successful censorship is on TV? Don't know the answer? Successful, isn't it?
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back.
Does anybody else want to stay?
Let's ride!
Another week together, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm so happy to have you here on a Monday, the 27th of July. We're going to be together for the last couple of days of July. Of course, July stretches to the 31st, which is Friday night, and then over the weekend, August shows up, which is, I told you I was quitting talking about how summer is over on July 5th. And so I'm not going to do that, but I'm just going to report on the weather. It has been very mild and chilly at night. And it just feels like September right now. I don't know what's going on. So there's that. I hope we get a couple more heat waves because the winter is long and it is not exactly snowy. It's just raw and wet. Anyhow, I hope you had a great weekend, whatever the hell it is that you did. And I Saturday night, we had a wonderful time. If you haven't seen Saturday night's show, it was really great. My cousins Sherry and Dave were in, and the first hour or so was on YouTube and Rumble and Twitch, and we had a real ball. And then we carried on more on the flip side on pilled.net, which is really where we can kind of just let loose and play even more stuff. But it was great to hang out with everybody who showed up on Saturday night, and we'll do that again in a couple of weeks. So tonight is going to be very interesting because I have for a while now, I've wanted to speak with somebody over there at Promethean Action. Because out of all of the, there's a lot of people out there who are just, doing the trust the plan stuff. And saying that there's a lot, there's more to this Iran thing than you know, and it's gonna turn out for the best. And don't worry, just trust the president, sit back, and that's that. Well, that doesn't really, it doesn't matter who it is and what's going on. That doesn't do anything for me. So when we found Promethean Action updating every once in a while, it was an interesting concept that they were building about how the world order, an old City of London managed world order, was actually being broken apart a century and some change later. And it was Barbara Boyd and Susan Kokinda, and there's also Michael Steger. And Michael's on with us tonight. He'll be jumping on in about 5 minutes or so. He's a co-founder at Promethean Action. And, I'm curious to have them on because, as you know, my default position is no, I'm not deploying the military for no reason. I'm not, especially when we have war on terror messaging that is attached to everything. It's just not something that I see as prudent. And I really think that if we are the economic and cultural trend-setting juggernaut that we are in the United States over here, that simple changes to our domestic policies can completely upend the world order without having to, fire one missile. So that's my default. But at the same time, it's interesting to watch them talk about what's going on in the world and how is it possible that this could be not the same old Middle Eastern misadventure? Well, hey, I'm just happy to have Michael on tonight to talk with all of us, and you at home can argue amongst yourselves in the chat. You can call in afterwards for a couple of for some comments, and we will be on our way on this Monday, July 27th, 2026. And then on the flip side tonight, there is no public flip side because it is session 3 for book club, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. And there you go. That's what we have. In the second half of the show, the theme of the second half of the show is peak insanity in the news. And we had some pretty insane things going on in the news over the weekend. Just a lot of just like head case shit, with Berlin, the response to all of the gay pride, rammings, plenty of rammings. A van ram though going on over there. And then you have some more socialist nonsense coming out of the mayor in New York, and then there is more. Of course, there's the trial from Shiloh Hendricks trial in Minnesota, which is just like this is what we expect out of Minnesota now, and I don't know what to tell you, man. I have a lot of things to say, and just stringing them all together is really it's a crazy weekend's worth of sound bites and news bites. But hopefully you jump in sometime along the way, and it'll be fun. It really will. In the meantime, can you all please just let everybody know where you're from? Roll call in the live chat room. The first 15 minutes of a live stream is huge, so let everybody know where you're representing and all that stuff. What country, county, state, planet? Go ahead. Just let everybody know you're part of the Galactic Federation, and you're showing up to rep your star system. That's all that matters. And for those of you in podcast land, please leave a nice rating wherever you're watching. Because remember, we're climbing toward 2,000, nearly 5-star ratings on Apple because we've been there forever. But on Spotify, we had to start all over again after Christmas time. So we're climbing toward 100 again. Thank you, everybody. We've had about 50 ratings since 2 weeks ago. But we got to start upping that. Because maybe we actually get discovered by podcast consumers. So there you have that. Now, a couple of things real quick. On Thursday, when Jay is on, Jay's going to stop by because I wanted to do all this Tony Fauci stuff. We can see the writing on the wall. And I think on either Wednesday or Thursday morning, there's going to be a showdown between Rand Paul and Dr. Fauci, which, cool. But again, we have not seen anybody clapped in irons yet, thrown in jail, and then of course made to squeal on all of their co-conspirators. So where this is going to go, I don't know how much more, blood we can get from this stone. How much more validation do we need that we're dealing with psychopaths? Anthony Fauci being a huge psychopath, as everybody is starting to see how he writes so glowingly about himself in his diary. Okay. And that's what we're going to be dealing with. So Senator Rand Paul had this out. Hold on, let me get that out of the way and put this up on the screen. He's been putting this up here. It's the reading room, documents released by Chairman Rand Paul as part of an ongoing investigation into the origins of COVID-19 and risky taxpayer-funded life sciences research. And started on the 24th of July, Fauci's side hustle, Tony's diary, what he wrote privately versus what he said publicly, and then today the latest, Tony's diary, the prequel. I don't know how much you're going to put into reading it. I'm sure Jay is going to be digesting a lot of it. I have a whole bunch of stuff set aside. That'll be a fun night on Thursday to at least kick around just a little bit. I don't know how much COVID stuff I want to talk about again, but the psychological profile building, man, just nuts. Just nuts. Now, on the Iran war front, which is I want to set the table with this so that we can talk to Michael Steger and then go from there. The Pentagon reports more than 600 Iran war casualties in quiet database update. This is from The Guardian. Figures are source of dispute as U.S. Defense Department days ago reduced record troops killed and wounded. So they're going on with this and that. Like, obviously, this could just be all part of the jockeying. There are people out there who are not necessarily opposed to war, making war and loving the spoils of war and all that stuff, but they just hate Donald Trump that much more than they love money sometimes. And to see him committing to an unpopular course of action like a war, there's plenty of ways to stoke the flames and to get people all riled up. And of course, messing with wounded, KIA, all those numbers is one of them. The Pentagon updated its official war casualty database over the weekend, adding more than 140 wounded service members. The Defense Casualty Analysis System also introduced a new casualty category labeled Overseas Operations for personnel killed and wounded starting July 7. According to the updated database, the official toll of the earlier phase of the U.S.-Iran war, known as Operation Epic Fury, now stands at 14 service members killed and more than 400 wounded in action. These figures have been point of contention after the Pentagon previously reduced the totals from 18 deaths and 482 wounded that had been recorded just days earlier. The dispute comes after the collapse of the ceasefire with Iran and the resumption of nearly daily airstrikes beginning on July 6th. We had a little bit of a reprieve for the 4th. Analysts and officials have questioned whether casualties from the renewed fighting should be counted separately from Operation Epic Fury, a move that would be unprecedented. I mean, what the hell does the categorization really even mean? That's just something that's going on. Now, another thing I should throw out there before we bring on our guest is that this is just about a day or so ago, Ukraine conducted a long drone strike attack in the Caspian Sea over the weekend, targeting vessels it linked to military cargo shipments involving Iran and Russia. Along with a Russian warship and an oil platform, this has drawn direct Iranian condemnation. Threats of retaliation is being widely described as the first clear operational link between the Russian-Ukraine war and the concurrent conflict involving Iran, often referred to as the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran. That's all from the BBC. And so you start wondering, okay, how are negotiations? Are we going to be getting out of this sometime soon? Can we stop this sometime soon? And what's going on in Ukraine? And over the weekend, people are like, oh gosh, are overtures being made to now combine fronts, to combine it all? Something that we hoped that would just be wiped away already. So there's a lot of frustration. And, people who understand what's going on here in the country, what we're up against domestically, also know that we're up against the clock when it comes to the midterms. And any chance, maybe you don't have faith in Congress. Like me, I have very little faith in Congress. But if there's ever going to be a chance that anybody's arm can be twisted into some kind of meaningful action, You can't do it without the right majority. So everybody's thinking about how what we're dealing with right now could, in one way or another, impact the midterms. And then from there, what the hell does that mean for the last 2 years of Donald Trump's second and maybe final term? He keeps talking about a third, fourth term. People are wondering, the more he jokes, the more serious he might get. Just like with Greenland and Cuba, what can we think about here? Should we really be considering to be the truth? And what else is just trolling? Anyway, we've got a great guest coming out right now. Mike Steger is the co-founder of Promethean Action, established a few years ago. I have been following them just the last couple of months because it has been a really refreshing way seeing people giving alternate ideas of where this all might be going. And of course, me, I'm not a betting man, so I just like seeing what plays are on the table. He's the host of Promethean Overviews and Monday Strategic Overview discussions, and a political commentator focused on the American system of economics, national industrial revival, geopolitics, and opposition to globalism. Mike, it is so great to have you on the show. How have you been?
I'm great, Frank. Good to be here.
Yes, it's great to meet you. I'll just jump right into it because I know we only have about a half hour tonight, but the audience is filled with people, myself included. That's not you. Hold on a second. Let me get you on the screen. That's an empty chair. And there we go. And I'll nudge you over. Don't worry. So the audience is filled with people who supported Donald Trump specifically. Everybody had a reason to come to the table and join the bandwagon here, but specifically because they were tired of forever wars. When they look at Iran and they say, I've seen this movie before, what is the biggest thing that you would say that most people coming from that position may be missing?
Well, it's not the question is why we went to war. Forever wars are wars done for reasons to create a forever war. So that's maybe where many people fall. Maybe they didn't watch it closely at the time and they look back at it and they go, well, maybe there were good intentions, but we got trapped. And I would say just the exact opposite. The people that led us into the Iraq War intended to have long occupations of Afghanistan and Iraq. And that was the very nature of it. It was what they call nation building, but I think even that was somewhat a kind of liberal justification. The real question was, how do we create a condition by which we can have an additional broader world war? The question for many of the people at the highest levels of geopolitics in the globalists' camp look at the United States as the main threat. And the way you run down the United States is to launch it into forever wars and then ultimately plunge it against its near peer competitors, nations like Russia. And in doing so, you'll wear down both major nations. And in doing so, allow the globalists to have basically free reign on nations around the world or peoples around the world. So the Iraq War, Afghanistan War was a geopolitical play. Same was Vietnam. So Trump's war in Iran is just different. He's looking to upend that globalist structure. But here's what I think people miss. The globalists have deployed cult-like factions into certain parts of the world that create conditions where it's very difficult to create long-term stability. You saw that in this kind of Venezuela-Cuba nexus, and we could talk about that if you wanted to. But that was a specific deployment of drug cartels, race-based third world violence type orientations, a lot of deployments into the left-wing United States, narco-terrorists throughout the Americas. And it was all funded, of course, then by Venezuela oil after they got cut off by the Soviets. The same is true with Iran, that Iran's government did not come into power with nationalist support. It was brought in by globalist interests. They brought the Ayatollahs in. They ran down the Iranian economy. They wore down the Shah. They also overthrew Mohammad Mossadegh in 1953 to kind of prevent what was then this rise of nationalism in Iran. So it had been a long period of time, but the way they got rid of Mossadegh in 1953, and this is often referenced by people as like the CIA overthrew the illegitimate Iranian leadership who was elected. He was nationalist. He was oriented towards industry and development of the country. The way they overthrew him was by appealing to Khomeini's predecessor, the Ayatollah prior to Khomeini was used to overthrow Mohammad Mossadegh. Within then 20 years, they're basically bringing the Ayatollahs into power. So Iran was set up as a bastion for what this kind of, but lack of better words, you could say a British imperial outlook of supporting radical Islam as a way of destabilizing the Middle East, controlling world energy and fuel prices and supply, and controlling the crossroads of the world where major nations, major continents, Africa, Asia, Europe, all intersect. The Middle East is just critical for global stability, for energy, and also just regional location. And so Iran was the perfect process. Then, of course, if Iran's raison d'etre, the reason the Iran Ayatollah regime exists is death to Israel and death to the United States, then it's an ongoing condition of gang counter gang. You can pump the Israelis. The Israelis are always under existential threat. The Iranians are pumping Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis. All of this dynamic is played, but it's not simply within the region. This is part of a globalist game. So what Trump is basically doing is he's saying we're going to take this off the map. And this is a hornet's nest. Iran doesn't have centralized government. They have a very decentralized process. And I think that's even gotten worse since the kind of conflict began. But the way you would be able to measure Trump's approach in a totally different way is to recognize that he's looking to build up the nations of the Middle East. He's going back to the very policy Mohammad Mossadegh had. He's going back to the policies that others in the Middle East after World War II had, which was major infrastructure projects, regional development, regional collaboration. He's actually empowering these nations to become nations again, not to be governed by terrorist factions or radical Islamic groups for a kind of Islamic caliphate, which is really a globalist way of organizing that region, like a European Union for the Middle East. He's saying, no, let's go back to strong, capable sovereign nations going through major development perspectives. And he's offering that same thing to Iran. So anybody like, you've got people, Max Blumenthal, others, who have gone to Tehran to worship the Ayatollah after his passing. What are they worshiping? The United States is offering these countries an opportunity to go back to vibrant, thriving nations and civilizations. He's offering that opportunity to them.
Well, Mike, let me ask you about this because I've heard about this, and I've listened to you guys go into the insurance aspect of this, and of course the City of London, British Petroleum angle, and you can. I like how you guys lay out the timelines, and I can see the argument that you're building, the position that you're defending on that. My question is, that sounds like a really important thing that you would want people, especially your constituents at home, to understand what the mission is. And I've been asking myself the question, I want to pose it to you, is why does the messaging from the White House suck so bad then? Because we're getting war on terror liberation slogans. For a little while there, Pete Hegseth was talking about how they're on a mission from God. We're talking about nuclear threats that are 40 years old now. This is what sounds like warmed over shit from people who have watched how we've gallivanted around the world with our military for the last 25 years. So why does the messaging, do you believe, from the White House suck so bad? Because that sounds like a noble thing to tell people, hey, we are upending 116 years of world order and giving. I don't know. At least it's different. That's why I just wonder.
Yeah. I think it's somewhat, to put it bluntly, I think in some ways it's a kind of funny aspect of Trump's genius. He knows that if he's going to deal with a very rough and compromised and corrupt world. So here's a good example of this. Why doesn't Trump do that? I think Trump could and would if he didn't have an entire Democratic Party who, as a party, and it's the foreign policy base, not the DC elite in the Democratic Party, they're as warmongering as anyone, but the Democrat, say, party base in the country generally would be much more susceptible to supporting this. What Trump needs is a majority coalition. So if you take away the Democrat base, which they did day one, 2017, they basically launched a TDS operation that it's verboten to even talk with the guy or make any kind of deals with him. Look what's happened to what's his name in Pennsylvania. So Trump realizes I don't have the ability. It's the same thing on infrastructure for the United States. Trump would love to do big infrastructure projects in the United States. It might increase government debt, but he's like, look, the way you solve the debt problem is by economic growth. So the way you grow is you build the big infrastructure projects that then enable a lot of other major projects to go. I mean, we're talking initially just major energy supply, but there are other projects that would be also important. And he doesn't have any backing or support at all. So he's got to find a narrow pathway to execute a policy that is right while organizing the political coalition that is accessible to him. And the Democrats have not made any of his agenda. And that's the reason. The reason why TDS was launched against Trump is because very much Trump had a lot of things that an average Democrat, like what he's doing today in Michigan at the General Motors plant. There's a lot of UAW guys, old Democrats. Trump has appealed to a large number of old Democrats in policy. And they basically said, if we let this happen, he's going to have a 70% majority. He's going to be able to run the country. And so I think to a large extent, they said we have to put an operation in that Trump is basically poison, totally toxic. And they launched a TDS cult-like formation in the United States. So I think that's partly why the messaging has to appeal then to this right-wing hawk regime to keep him with some level of political coalition and majority to get things done in Washington. Because if he loses the hawks and he's got them behind him and he's got TDS in front of him, he's eaten alive.
I can see what you're saying there. I was wondering there more from a practical standpoint. First of all, why? That's the first thing I wanted to know is why isn't the administration simply explaining the larger strategy when it's that in itself makes it a much different experience for people at home and wondering when the gas is going to go down and where we're going to start talking about the price of eggs again. But, let me ask you this, because right before I brought you on, I reminded everybody in the audience that my default position for all of this stuff is usually just, hey, I would like to withdraw from the world a little bit more, not become a, hermit, a good neighbor, merchant with everybody else, good friend and trading partner. But other than that, foreign aid, I want it all gone. I want to close down military bases. I want to really start focusing domestically. Because I figure that if we are the juggernaut economically and socially, that we know we are, and we have seen that we are, that why wouldn't domestic policies be able to be the big enough spark to change what's going on in the world? What would you say the biggest hindrance for us to regain that sovereignty that you're always talking about at Promethean Action? What is the biggest hindrance in the Middle East that if we need to correct that, or else we won't be able to achieve what we got to do at home to maximum efficiency?
That's a good question. I think there's two factors to that, though. Let's just address both, and I'll try to do it quickly. One is the economic picture in the United States, because he can't pull together a bipartisan coalition. That's a fundamental aspect of the operation against Trump in the United States today. He can't pull any bipartisan coalition. There's bigger questions he might be able to take on domestically, but a lot of it is brick and mortar. We're not in this digital Silicon Valley age of it's just going to be an app on your phone economy. It's brick and mortar, it's factories, it's industry, it's machine tools, it's raw materials. And so that's in motion, but it takes time. It's in real life. It's not a meme. In terms of the Middle East or in foreign policy generally, you can see two main factors, and you can see how the globalists are playing this. You see it in Ukraine. They want to keep the Ukraine thing burning, even however much the Ukrainian population is just totally destroyed, just keep it burning, hoping they can outlast Trump, they can bring in a new president, and they can go back to that escalation with Russia, because that's part of this orientation, as I mentioned at the beginning. The second part in the Middle East directly is that and it applies to both conditions. For Ukraine, you've got European factors and factions like the British and the French that will keep pushing this war even if the United States is not involved at all. And that's kind of what's happened under Trump. In the Middle East, the Iranian network, largely deployed from the city of London, Hezbollah, Hamas. Look what October 7th was. Nobody would have said after October 7th the Israelis are going to be very gentle in their response. Everybody knew this was going to be outrageous. It was going to be massively destructive. We all knew it. I mean, if anybody didn't, the attack was done in such a way to blow that up. Where did that Hamas attack come from? Well, it came to some degree from Iran. And the point is that you could create scenarios using Iran and some of its proxies to create such chaos that even if 90% of the American population practically despised Israel and Netanyahu, that the situation would start to unfold where we would be brought into some kind of conflict, even if they had to run a terrorist attack inside the United States to foment it. But you could create a chaos to drag us in. And that's part of this operation. And once that's already even more chaotic than it was when Trump came in 2025 with Gaza, it was already much deeper water than when he left it. When he left it, it was the Abraham Accords and Saudi was about to join. He comes back, you've got Israel just decimating all of Gaza. Then, at some point you have to get involved and engaged in that. And so Trump's trying to put those fires out he's looking to change the structure of the Middle East so that dynamic doesn't continue to happen. Now, some could say, and it'd be hard pressed to it because there's always this chance, you can never get rid of that dynamic in the Middle East. But there is no doubt, if you look at what Trump's done with Turkey, Jordan, Lebanon, Iraq, the Gulf countries, Egypt, Pakistan, the standout country in that entire region that is basically saying we are committed to destruction. We are committed to giving a middle finger to the United States and to this region as a whole is Iran. And so I think Trump sees that that's the way that this thing can be broken up, is by restructuring Iran in the context of major infrastructure and energy development in the region. He just signed, for example, a big energy deal on nuclear with Saudi Arabia.
Oh, and I would say, yeah, I think the only other thing that people would push back on would say maybe, well, why now? I understand if that is a fire that needs to be if that is a fire that needs to be put out, then why not try to take care of making sure that we are humming to such a degree here stateside with deportations, with making the economy strong, bringing down energy costs, and then allowing the more nuanced geopolitical things to be done by maybe your successor or something like that, to not try to screw.
Yeah.
Everybody's thinking about the midterms and, of course, 2028. Why do this now? You don't seem to be fazed by it. And I know a lot of people out there who think that this is in the bag one way or another. I'm just curious. I like probing about what's going on and how you see the timelines building. But, you brought up Israel. So I just want to jump on that real quick. In this whole process, especially in the ceasefire process, we saw them becoming a big stick in the mud for ceasefire negotiations, at least in that first round of, okay, we think we might have a deal. And they're like, well, no, we're not going to stop bombing Lebanon. We're doing our own thing one way or another. There's this deepening suspicion about them, especially after this military partnership that was in the NDAA that has gotten a little bit more murky and entangling. They've never been this universally unpopular, at least in my lifetime. You have these, and it's not making me warm to them at all, but the Muslim mayors of New York and London have both in their own way said that they'd like to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu. So my question is, if the goal is to eventually get away from interventionist patterns of the last 50 years, is there ever going to be a sane reassessment of our Israeli entanglements?
Oh, I think that reassessment is ongoing. The population in the United States has changed so much that Israel has really kind of spent its cards in Gaza. That leaves, and Israel's whole government situation is just very bizarre. They're going to have elections there in October. So Israel's got a lot of things to work through. And in some ways, Israel itself has been gutted as a globalist entity. It was a major industrial manufacturing nation. There was a real aspect of nationalism to, like, in the early decades of Zionism, of building up Israel as a vibrant, industrial, self-reliant country. Israel is a shell of itself. It's been culturally gutted in many ways. as part of this globalist regime, and that's left it in the hands of these kind of more religious factions. So all of that's there. I think the whole relationship with Israel is getting reorganized in different ways. So, but the bigger question you asked was kind of why now?
Yeah.
And, you know, one thing Trump said early on, and I'm not inside the White House, so this is just speculation, but let me read the tea leaves in some sense here. Because I would genuinely ask that same question to myself all the time. He said no other future president can handle this, and he's right. If you take J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio or anybody in the Republican stable, let alone the lunatics and the Democrat, Trump saw the bum rush. He saw what was happening. He saw what Netanyahu was doing. He saw what factions like Lindsey Graham and others were doing to push this war. He saw the dynamic. And he saw, of course, that Iran had a massive upheaval and protest. And the protest started from the Bazaris, which are the old Iranian merchant class, which were very much in the pocket of the regime. So those protests in January, people said it was all Mossad. It's like, that's not all Mossad. There was a legitimate, real protest and economic crisis in Iran. Obviously, there were probably aspects to it that were foreign intervention, but it was genuinely there. But Trump saw the bum rush. And I think he said, look, if I don't go and deal with this, and it's not going to be easy, this is going to be hard. So he's opening up discussions with the Iranians. And the Iranians, and they've said it, they've basically said, come get us. The Iranian plan is the same plan Che Guevara announced in 1966 in Havana. 1, 2, 3 more Vietnams. We want to drag the United States into deep, long occupational wars where we will just maul them down and divide their country culturally. So Iran is basically saying, like, come on, bring your Marines, bring your land forces. That's why I believe the negotiators are telling Witkoff and Kushner, we've got 10 bombs ready to go in like 2 months or 3 months or whatever it is. We've got enough nuclear material. We could move aggressively. They've clearly had delivery systems. But it's more the psychology of it. They're running an attrition war. They, meaning the globalists, their agents in Iran or in Hamas, other factions in different countries, they're trying to drag us into these long, long wars because nothing has injured the United States more than the Vietnam War. It completely divided the country into an anti-American and pro-American camp that we have yet to really heal. So I think Trump saw this whole thing and said, I've got to solve it. Now, was it harder and bigger than he thought? I think it probably was. But we saw the same thing when Trump first came into the White House. Oh my God, this is much more of a bigger corruption problem. I thought people would be practical and at least deal with me on issues. This is completely an ideological religion kind of question that Trump was dealing with in Washington. He's confronting the same thing in Iran, but he has the ability to stay the course. And the only way you're going to break Iran, because Iranians know, I mean, they've got the New York Times as their mouthpiece. They know, they think they've got any American president over an election barrel. They've got you. They've got you. You're going to have to take in the midterms into account. And so Trump knows, and I think he genuinely knows, I've got to basically say, if this ruins the midterms, it ruins. There's a good chance Trump also knows maybe this can become just background noise in the midterms. That we can make the midterms about other things that are more pressing, that are at the core of what the election has really been about, what Trump's revolution has really been about. That's a gamble, but it's a tough midterm no matter what. The Republicans in the Senate won't move on much legislation. He gets no bipartisan support on any domestic economic legislation. Democrats were talking tariffs for decades. Trump raises them, and they become the anti-tariff free trade party. So the midterms were going to be tough, always are. But I think Trump saw that this problem had to be addressed. And the problem is not just Iran. The problem is the kind of religious fanaticism in the United States to go to war with Iran that any other president would probably be devoured by. Or they would sit and do nothing and could allow the region to continue to fester into chaos and to be a threat somewhere down the line.
Man, if we had about another 20 minutes, I have so many questions now just about how you perceive Iranian autonomy at this point. Because when we start off and you talk about not necessarily British Parliament, but City of London financial types and all that stuff, about puppetry and That kind of shadow puppetry that can be going on. I wonder how people, either in the Trump administration or others who see themselves as in the know, actually view Iranian activity. Are you really dealing with them, or are you dealing with the people who have been kind of directing them for generations, as you are saying here? But we don't have time for that. So maybe the next time you come on, I got a lot more questions. But so real quick, moving from there, because this is still a little bit more international, where do you see on the timeline of the next 5 years, if Trump is able to establish a really good foothold for a successor like a JD Vance or somebody else like that? What about NATO and the UN? I want out of both. I want neither. I don't want a physical presence in the United States either. I want the UN to be out of New York. Is that ever going to be a thing? Because when we're talking about sovereignty, being a part of those things are very constitutionally dubious.
Yeah, so the United Nations is already getting the Department of Education treatment. It's already funding is being hashed and slashed. This is one of the first things Rubio did at the State Department. Something like 28 different agencies at the UN were basically just gutted of funding. He just went after the International Criminal Court. So I think what you do is you basically squeeze that, you put it on life support. You need the Security Council, you need certain elements of it for just a kind of diplomatic structure. It's kind of allowed a little bit of what's the word? A kind of valve, a release valve for some international pressures. But the main question, though, in terms of sovereignty, is to find other nations who have significant, a real living sense of what sovereignty is and the ability to walk that walk. And in some sense, I believe that the future of U.S. foreign policy hinges on an increasing collaborative relationship with Russia. I think that's the key question. It takes the teeth out of this war gambit coming out of these NATO factions. It changes the whole NATO dynamic. Russia has even offered to join NATO. We could bring them in. You could make it so it's a security alliance. Now, this might completely throw some people for a loop. They see Russia as intrinsically an enemy. They're obviously a competitor, but they have real sense of sovereignty. They see the total liberal degeneracy of Europe. They have a sense of being a major continental nation, predominantly out of Western civilization. And in many ways, Russia was our closest ally in the Revolutionary War, in the Civil War, in World War I, and even in World War II, as the Soviets. They were still allies to the United States. So there's a long history there. I think that would be a fundamental change. It would take the teeth out of NATO. It would allow for kind of a gang up on this entire liberal monster of the UN. And we could begin to restructure the way the global foreign policy and kind of security architecture looks like.
Well, that would be wonderful to see in my lifetime. That really would. And so two more real quick questions. You just gave me an opening for one of them. You're talking about liberal degradation in just Western culture over there in Europe, and that's on the outside, the front door of Russia. Through everything, migration, which is hand in fist with judicial degradation and welfare, environmentalism, all these horrible policies. Do you see any forthcoming solutions that will actually allow for Western culture some time to heal? Because especially with the socialist front that we have just in the United States, as it's a little bit more than a fad at this point. It's coming to a head, and people are starting to become a little bit more willing to kill for it. What is what good is a bustling economy if we are going to be continuing with the subsidies and the fraud and the migrant crime and all the other stuff? Do you ever go in, because I haven't heard it, do you ever go into what the social healing part of this is? Because a new world geopolitical rearrangement seems like it would be nothing without a nice, strong culture at home being reestablished.
Oh, I think you've hit it on the head there. Yeah, I think that's the real substance of it. And I mean, in many ways, what we're seeing is a revival of a kind of, I would say, a kind of a more substantial sense of Christianity. And I think that's the core of Western civilization. Yes, it has Roman law characteristics. Yes, it has Greek philosophical characteristics. Yes, it has Judaic monotheistic characteristics. But what Christianity brought to bear was something of a higher order. It was a culture and a civilization itself premised on truth and made accessible to every individual. And once that took hold, first it exploded into a kind of intellectual renaissance in the midst of the complete degeneracy of the Roman Empire. It then preserved Western civilization after the kind of barbarian hordes and destruction and collapse of Rome. And then about 500 years later, after the population of Europe rebuilds, there's a kind of explosion again because it's now all Christendom. It's all so-called in the Christian world, but yet what is the true substance of this question? And you get people like Dante looking at the nature of the human soul. What is this question of the soul? What is the immortality of the soul? What role does that play in civilization? And you get everything from modern science, the questions of self-government, the American Republic, industry, architecture, classical musical composition, art, painting, architecture, you name it, industry, all of it, economics, explodes for 500-year period, starting with that great Renaissance of Europe, which at core was a reevaluation or creation of a new, more substantial Christian culture. And I think in some sense, that's the very wellspring of Western civilization. I think we see signs of that happening. I think we see young people going in that direction for deeper sense of meaning, because politics can make you cynical fast, and just economic pragmatism or what they might call utilitarian outlooks just don't cut it, as you're saying. You can't just have wealth and prosperity. There's a deeper sense of meaning. And I think in some ways we're looking at the necessity of a third Christian Renaissance to be initiated. And it will be initiated by the United States, which is really the hallmark of the development of the last 500 years.
Well, that would be great. Hopefully, there's a couple of arrests along that way. I definitely want everybody to go to church, and I think I think it's there's nothing but good things that can come from that. But there also has to be a little bit more of a deterrent for the future. I mean, there's just our guard's been let down. It's almost like I don't know. We can wax.
Well, I think that's why. What I'm addressing is more, I'm not addressing going to church. It's this, a higher form of Christianity was not found in the pews in the 13th to the 14th century. It's found in building a civilization.
Right.
And if you have that sense again of building a civilization, then you address the cult-like formations of the climate cult, the gender cult, radical Islamic cults, all of which have kind of come together as a new kind of communist socialist movement in the United States and in the West. And so I think there's a sense of, we've lost a sense of what is our civilization, and you can't know that academically or theoretically. You know it, you teach it to young generations by challenging them to build it, to advance it. And I think that's what we've got to respark.
And not only that, but justice, sense of justice, sense of a common moral code. Like where did our law come from, and where do we have common ground, and what you cannot compromise on. And that's of course where we get into building a culture where you cannot commit crime with impunity anymore. So very, very well said. As you go out the door, what are the milestones you will be looking for over the next 12 months if we don't happen to speak again, which I hope we do?
No, this has been great, Frank. I'd be happy to come on anytime.
Okay.
The next 12 months, I think that the main question is to drive, to not let, for your listeners, there's an easy tendency to get cynical about what's happening, the Iran war, we haven't gotten 20 million illegals out of the country. It's only been 2.5 million. It could be faster. We haven't got the SAVE Act passed. There's every reason to maybe say Trump didn't get the job done, to be cynical. We're now into a war. We're into a boondoggle for whatever reason, good or bad. It's still not working out. It's much difficult. It's compromising the midterms. The enemy has nothing to offer. The Democratic Party today just had to put its own headquarters as collateral for a $15 million loan. They're bankrupt. They're busted. The left has no candidates. They have no substance. They are simply anti-Trump. The question isn't Trump. The question isn't the Republican Party, though that's the vehicles we might have today. The question is, are we as a people going to mobilize to transform and rebuild the country? Because our younger generations are getting devoured, and they know it. They're getting angry. They're getting to a point of they have nothing to lose. And we've got to change that picture now. The midterms are a part of it, because I believe if we can put the Democratic Party 6 feet under, we can kill this modern expression of the Democrat Party, which these midterms would do a lot to do that, because they have to win. They have to win a House, or their party kind of breaks into multiple pieces. And so I think that people should have a focus on mobilizing for that. If we do that, I think we're going to increasingly have to rebuild this Republican Party and strengthen it around what we're discussing here. But I think right now we've got to stay focused on the midterms. That's my sense.
Mike Steger, Promethean Action. Thank you so much for the time tonight. It was wonderful meeting you.
Yeah, you too, Frank. You have
All
a great
right.
night.
Take care.
See you.
There we go, ladies and gentlemen. So, hey, you know what? Some of you might be like, okay, noted. Others, I'm sure that there is plenty of just, well, I'm throwing that in the trash. I know that we got a lot coming from this audience, so I'm just going to take a moment to give you guys some time to call in, and we'll start stringing together some of the other crazy stuff that happened over the weekend. But this, I'm so happy we got to talk to Mike, because I have been keeping track of everything that they've said, or almost everything. It's not we've watched a couple of Promethean Action videos after the show ends at 9:00. On the flip side, debating how much people can believe and see that happen. Do you think that this is plausible? Whatever. What it comes down to for me more is practical stuff, like, why is the messaging so bad? Mike addressed that a little bit there too, just understanding who's in front of Trump and who's behind him, who, the snakes of his own so-called party, and then of course the opposition, and then there is just the general nature of the media. At this point, I would hope that he would be it would just be no holds barred, and just say, listen, we gotta extinguish this right now and whatever. And here is the world order that's being dismantled. And F you, London. I don't know. What the hell do I know? It was interesting to have that conversation, though. And anything that popped up for you that you thought bears some further comment, give me a buzz, 914-200-0269. And then we're going to start going through spinning the wheel on some of the headlines from the weekend, and that should set the nice tone for this week. I got a lot of great guests coming on. Tomorrow should be pretty nice. The other thing I found, somebody sent me this this search tool that you can go through all the transcripts of the No Agenda podcast, and I said, okay, well, I got to find the day. I have to find the day that I started getting hit up by so many people in the audience now that John Dvorak was talking about me. I have to go find this. And I got to bring up some things that I found tomorrow. That'll be good. We have other really inspiring things going on tomorrow night, too. So 914-200-0269. Give me a buzz. First one up, 216. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Hi, Frank. Thanks so much for having someone, and Mike particularly, from Promethean Action. I've been following them for quite some time, and was an original Lyndon LaRouche follower back in the day, which that organization obviously has not kept up with Lyndon LaRouche's original intent. But anyway, Promethean Action has really taken it up. And I'm just so happy that you had someone from their organization on. I wish he had a little more time, and maybe when he comes back again. They really do great work, and they really get into the nitty-gritty of people getting involved with their local elections, not just local elections, but being on the board of elections, which is a really, really important factor, because you can't just let any Joe Schmo get on these election boards, or they just screw everything up again. But thanks so much for having him on. Really appreciate it. And, Trump is walking such a tightrope with Netanyahu. I mean, can you imagine? I think he would really like to kick him to the curb, but can you imagine the neocon faction of the ADL and what they would do if he just threw him to the curb, like he'd probably love to do?
Well, I try to think. I try to think about if I was in a situation like that as well. And yeah, well, it would be a little bit I say it'd be a little bit easier for me, but you know, when you have these vipers breathing down your neck. Thank you so much for calling in. But I have to imagine, even if you were okay with a little bit of a coalition building at first that included some aspect of the Israeli lobby and all that other stuff, it must be just so grating after a while. Like, oh, they're calling again. Oh God, please stop calling me. Just run your own damn country. But then again, it shows up in the NDAA. He doesn't seem very. Every once in a while, we saw him get really pissed off a couple of times with Netanyahu and the IDF and how they're just, you know, they just want to drop bombs. They finally got the war, the title bout that they've been waiting for a while now, and they just want to bomb. They just want to bang, man. And Trump obviously wants to wrap this thing up quick so we can start talking about making money again. And you've seen that frustration come to a head, but at the same time, I mean, things like the NDAA is just not necessary. Not necessary. That throws up so many red flags. I mean, that the whole damn thing is. There's so much in there that has nothing to do with Israel that is just so bad for anybody who is an American who values privacy. And you know, it's crazy. So yeah, there's a lot there. There's a lot, and I'm glad he joined us. We only had a half hour. So, you know, there's a couple of things I had to leave out, but I think we got most of the most important things in right now. Tons of follow-ups. I'll have to save them for some other time. Let's take a call. 256, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, Frank, it's Shannon.
Hello?
Oh, no. Hello. I'm so sorry, Frank. I had it on my speaker instead.
Okay,
Can you
go
hear me
ahead.
now?
Yeah, I can. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Hey, it's Shannon.
Hey, Shannon, how are you?
I'm good. I was just going to call in because I was actually watching you live tonight for the first time in forever, and I'm cooking some good up food, some southern food from that garden that the pictures I showed you.
Oh yeah, great garden. So what do you think about Mike Steger's stance on things?
I honestly haven't been listening.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm so sorry.
Well, it's all right. Well, you can always come on back on whenever you reround a little bit and see what's up. Real quick, you want to just tell everybody what you've cooked real quick from the garden? Go ahead.
Oh, well, I'm doing fried okra with a shrimp and grits.
Oh, okay. Well, that sounds very hearty. And thank you for sharing with us. I'd love to talk more, but I want to hear what people think about the call.
I'm so sorry, man.
Oh, don't.
It was the only time I get to watch live. So, and then you were actually taking calls right now. I was like, holy crap. Okay.
Well, here I am. Well, thank you. I'm glad you got through. It's good to hear from you, Shannon. Have a good one.
You too.
All right. Be well. Let's take a call from Willie. How are you, Willie? What do you think?
I think I got to turn the phone off because there's some broad that doesn't know the topic and it's calling in, and that just got my king voice going right now.
He's got his king impression going on. Do you see what you did, Shannon?
Oh, man. My buddy King is like thinking snow Mexicans and shit. Oh, man. I'm loving him. I'm sure he's somewhere. Oh, yeah. Well, I got to give you a honest criticism, right? I've been following you for 100 years, right? And you keep saying that half your audience doesn't like the guest or something. I think it should be a little more impartial. I mean, what the fuck do I know? Nothing, right? But to me, when I'm listening to it, I took offense because, like, some people are going to like it, some people are not going to like it. But it's like everybody likes your show, and you shouldn't tell the guests that there's some people that like it or don't like it. But that's far, and throw that in your back of fucking memory or something, Google that and, delete that. But what I think is the guy is very well read, very good. I thought he answered all your questions. I watched his eyeballs and stuff, like the face shit, man. He did the best thing. I think they're great. And I think you got to talk to him again and get Susan and Barb on him again and do another show. You got to do the trifecta. Because these guys are fucking on the money and have been studying this shit forever. He's younger than the other girls. So, however, whatever, but he's a co-founder or something. But these guys got a pretty good line on things. You know what I mean?
Well,
And
yeah,
I really think it just deserves more of an impartial than, some of my viewers aren't going to like what you're saying. I don't know. I'm not trying to give you criticism, but yes, I am.
well, thank you.
What do you think about what I said?
Okay.
I mean, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Willie. It's great to hear from you and great to be criticized by you. That's not what I said, though. It's just, I think it's not a, I don't think it's very controversial or self-deprecating or anything like that to acknowledge that things like the Iran war is a point of contention for a lot of people. It has caused quite a bit of fracturing, especially in online circles who like talking about current events and all that stuff. And I did not promise that people are going to hate the guest. I referenced that people were going to have disagreements about the topic, which is what makes it a good topic. So that's all I have to say on that. Jay Britt says, I really like listening to the Promethean group. Great interview, Frank. They're very articulate. And like I said before, the reason why I really wanted to talk with somebody on there, I'm glad I got to speak with Mike, but can you imagine if we get to have, the three, the triumvirate of all three of them on one day? That'd be great. Hell, I can't wait to have Mike back one day. And if you have any follow-up questions that you want me to include in my notes for that time, whether you are on with it or you're just not sold and you want to hear him answer some, well thought out hard questions, and send it my way and I will put it into my notes, and then I'll get him on the maybe I can get him on the show for an end of the summer call. I'm going to want to talk to everybody come mid to late September, October, start approaching that midterm area. So yeah, there's that. That'd be wonderful. Very articulate in that respect. And a lot of the things you see out there is combative. I find it all very combative. People are just trying to, purity test each other. Who supports the president the most? Who's actually want to show how little they support the president, because that can also become a virtue signal of how independent they are. They're not part of a cult, but at the same time, it makes them rigid in some other way. There's a whole lot of acting going on, and then there's a lot of people who just, they toe the line in that respect, and it becomes a rah-rah kind of a situation. And I never saw Promethean action really go to war with anybody. I just see them very calmly lay out what they think is happening, and it's usually well sourced. And whether it ends up being it ends up happening just like that or not, at least it was something that was worthy of consideration and delivered in some kind of a calm, non-combative way. So that's what has kind of drawn me into just, hey, well, I'm just going to keep this in the mix of the things that I pay attention to, because I think their analysis is pretty interesting. Let's see here. Hello Kitty says, good night, y'all. I will pick up the rest on Podbean. Sending love. Well, it's great to hear from you. All right, let's see. Jeannie Yankee Fan has gifted a sub over there on Twitch. Jeannie's just so great. People have become many a sub. Many a sub has been created because of Jeannie and others like that across all of the platforms. There's always like a subscription gifting aspect to all the platforms at this point. Pilled is crazy. There's so much generosity on the Pilled. If you ever wanted to try to find a way to become a sponsor for a month without paying for it, hang out in Pilled. You'll be able to claim a sponsorship almost every night. Stumbleboots says, this guy right here. Katie Sky says, great guest, even better questions and topics, Frank. What do you think about it all? Well, I've said enough, I think, up until this point. I just think it's something to chew on, and the histories will be written on this before long, and we will know who had the best take on it. And even when it is over, you have to start weighing, was it worth it? Okay, a bow's been wrapped up on this one. It's behind us now. Was it worth it? Did we get exactly, is this going to be a lasting change? Is the world really going to be different going on forward? Is that kind of City of London stranglehold on the region going to continue or reestablish itself in some other way? And what does that look like? you know, I have questions about the whole autonomy of Iran, because when you say this is a big talking point with the Promethean group, is that city of London is not necessarily the parliament, but financial interests, that essentially the British Empire is not so much a geographical thing, but more so a financial thing that stretches around the world now. If that's the case, then everybody knows who pays them. Everybody knows where the money is coming from, especially if you're working on a nation state level. If you're in Iran, if some aspect of London and those banking types are propping up Iran and keeping the region in an acceptable, atmosphere of chaos, then there's the question of autonomy. To what degree does Iran be able to plot their own course? And at what point would they actually be more prone to just, throwing whoever the hell their bosses are under the bus? I look for it's almost like the messaging thing. Okay, if Donald Trump is going out there and really trying to break apart a big hub of shadow state activity around the world, and try to break the back of something that's been there for over a century and give us a chance of something new going forward, then why are you fumbling the messaging? And why are we getting warmed over war on terror talking points and slogans? I know he addressed that as far as how he has to walk the tightrope over here politically in the U.S., but man, it's nobody's gonna like you more. Just go for it. Go for it. As long as you keep people together on something, give them something new to listen to at least. So I don't. Those are the things that pop up for me, and I'm still trying to feel it all out. So wondering what you guys think. All right. And Hello Kitty threw another one in there. Hello Kitty says, "Hi Frank and chat. I hope everyone has a marvelous Monday. A marvelous Monday indeed. Remember, all your super chats, we're going to be giving away something really special on Thursday. This is the first prize I have so far. This is from our wonderful friend Colin. He's got a great little company over here, Peakwood Specialties, and he made He woodworked these 4 coasters, drink coasters with the jester silhouette on there. 4 wooden drink coasters with nice felt bottom and all that stuff. And I'm going to be putting in a silver 50-cent piece. This is a 1982 George Washington 250th anniversary of his birth piece. Came from another friend of ours. That is also a big thank you to Quite Frankly Gold. Tony Arterburn over there. If you go to Quite Frankly Gold when you want to stack or get some gold backs or whatever the hell it is, just use promo code Frankly and you get free physical silver with every order, no matter how small it is. So this is what I'm building so far for the Super Chat raffle on Thursday night. Okay, we've got 4 coasters and a $50, a very special silver $50 with Father George in there. Okay, so you send in a super chat on YouTube and Rumble and Gold Pills or quite frankly superchat.com and you are in the running. And the more you send, the better your chances. Okay, let's go to something else. Are you ready for some craziness? Let's go to some crazy and let's bring this all together. First things first, we're going over to New York City. New York City Mayor Mamdani. Mayor Mamdani has a wonderful idea. He's a genius. This is from End Wokeness, got the clip. Mayor Mamdani just announced that he will be opening 5 city-run, tax-funded grocery stores. And he's just essentially going to stock the stores with food and make sure that they're always 30% below retail price. Retail price. And now the question I'm going to ask you at the end of all of these stories that we're about to link together is, it's like, I get to the rhetorical one, but I guess we can say, what happens when ideology becomes more important than reality? Well, we're living through it. I guess you don't have to call in and answer it, but keep that in mind. When ideology becomes more important than reality. Take a listen to this doofus.
Here's how it will work. Once a month, Our 5 city-run grocery stores will set prices for this core set of goods at 30% below typical retail prices. No exceptions, no gimmicks. The savings will last.
First of all, this was written by ChatGPT. He actually sounds like a ChatGPT voice. The no exceptions, no gimmicks. This is 100% AI.
Core set of goods at 30% below typical retail prices. No exceptions, no gimmicks. The savings will last for the entire month. That means no weekly fluctuations nor sticker shock at the checkout line.
Okay? It's simple. Smirking Mom Donnie, who's always flanked by scowling women. Always flanked by scowling women. So he announces that there's going to be this five city-run grocery stores that they're going to be opening. And you say to yourself, wow, prices set 30% below retail prices. That's amazing. The shoplifters are going to be so stoked to hear that everything in the city stores are going to be 30% off. That's going to be great for them. So they're taking money from productive people in order to artificially lower prices in stores that they're building that will still be robbed blind, just to be able to say that we opened a physical grocery store with other people's money and we undercut the prices of private businesses that actually have a reason to exist. You know? And this is why I say socialists hate the middle class. They hate the middle class. They love people being miserable, lower class, uncomfortable, because they're easy to rile up, easy to give a victim, an oppressor to, and to point them in a direction to go riot and cause problems for everybody that you want to take out. That's it. They hate the middle class more than they hate the rich, because they want to be rich. They want to go to the swanky wine parties. They want to wear nice clothes, but they just want to jam their snouts into the piggy bank. They want to jam their snouts into the bank there and just skip to the payoff part. That's all they want to do. Socialists don't actually want to make something that works. They want to LARP and they want to pretend to be useful. And that's what this guy is doing. So sure, the smirking asshole would just, he could have just created a new kind of food voucher system. Could have just created a new, even though that's bad enough, he could have just created a new food voucher program within the city with all the money that he's stealing in taxes. But, you know, opening up a physical grocery store with discounted cabbage is so much more snazzy. We opened up this store. If a private business is, if they start closing at this point because they can't compete with the artificially low prices, oh well, we can always just seize them. You know, you see how this works? And this comes 2 days. This announcement comes 2 days after these headlines are printed in Chicago. 7 Save-A-Lot stores shut down across Chicago's south and west sides. 7 Save-A-Lot stores across Chicago closed their doors Saturday, leaving residents with one less grocery store in areas where options are already limited. For Southside resident John Kali Mingdwalaja, the closures were no surprise. Quote, it's the same old story, to be honest with you. It's not just here nationally when it comes down to black communities. Yeah, that's all it is. That's all it is. It's a black community. So let's just close up the grocery store. Nobody there needs to eat. Or is it something else, my friend? The closures come 4 years after the city of Chicago announced it would give $13.5 million in taxpayer financing to Yellow Banana as a part of a roughly $26 million deal to buy and renovate 6 stores in the south and west sides of Chicago. Yellow Banana agreed to keep the stores open for 10 years. The locations closed less than 2 years after the investment. The stores that closed, and then they list them all as if they're going to be shamed for not being able to stay open. Save-A-Lot and Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson are blaming the closures on federal funding cuts and changes to programs like SNAP benefits. Yeah, it's just incredible. I heard that the federal government had a little hand in this particular one. Save-A-Lot is unfortunately the first casualty. At a WNBA event on Saturday, Governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, highlighted the work he said his administration has done to keep the grocery stores open. It's insane. It's insane. Okay? It's insane. And it's for the same reasons, largely for the same reasons that whenever there is some sort of a fake civil rights riot or, some kind of a protest season that flares up from time to time, usually an election year, and some poor community gets looted, pillaged in some way to send a message to some, I don't know who the hell they're sending the messages to, but the only message is that there are less and less people who want to reopen their businesses there. There are less and less places who want to invest in such a tumultuous side of a city or a state or something like that. And of course, there is the theft. Theft for which there is no deterrent. There is no way to hold people accountable because discipline is also offensive. And that's what we got going on over there. Now, here's another thing for you from Chicago and New York all the way over to Berlin. Berlin is still going through the gay pride rigmarole. They're still having parades over there. Thankfully, we confine most of it to June, and even that is becoming less and less. And over the weekend, a Muslim rammed a car through a gay parade like it was a cutscene from GTA 6. This is from the Daily Mail. Lebanese German, yes, we better hyphenate that because definitely this is a German man. Lebanese German ISIS terrorist who plunged into Pride Parade, killing 1 and injuring 29, has been shot dead. Of course, if you were going to ask the New York Times, they would tell you that it was a car that plowed through a park during Berlin's biggest LGBTQ Pride event, killing at least 1 person. That damn car's at it again. It's probably the cousin of another car that lost control and became sentient. Started hating the gays. The crazy thing about this article is when you read just a little bit into it, they talk about the Lebanese German ISIS terrorist. Only in the 21st century can you have one of those be a thing. Police sources, quote by German media, said Abdul B., a German citizen, had traveled to Lebanon in 2025 in an unsuccessful attempt to join the Islamic State group. Okay? Unsuccessful. They didn't want him. Now here, listen to this part. He had been in pretrial detention until May of 2026 and was ordered to take part in de-radicalization programs. So he had been detained because he was trying to gain membership to some Islamic State program here, there, or the other place. Who the hell even knows? But he leaves Germany to go abroad and see if somebody will hire him. Like he's a member of the Foot Clan. He's tryouts for the Foot Clan. And he was ordered to take part in a de-radicalization program because that's the West. That's the insanity of the West here. We're going to try to de-radicalize a person, de-radicalize a Lebanese man who should just be kicked out of the country, never to return again. But they're trying to de-radicalize him. And imagine how much worse it could have been if he hadn't taken that course, ladies and gentlemen. Imagine how much worse it could have been if he had not been de-radicalized. Can you imagine sitting a radical Muslim man down and reading them Timmy Has Two Daddies for 2 months and then releasing them into the wild? I mean, I'm not surprised the first thing he did was go out and rent a van. Not surprised. So you have to ask yourself, which they will never ask. You have to ask yourself, do you want gay parades or do you want to turn Europe Muslim? You can only have one. Only have one. But this is part of the crazy. When I read that he actually had completed the de-radicalization program, I said, oh my God. Oh dear Lord. And then we have this. The organizers of the Berlin Pride Parade came out yesterday and they had a special message for everybody. Let's take a listen to it.
As the CSD organizers in Berlin, we are distraught about what happened yesterday. Our thoughts are with the victims, their loved ones, and everybody who has been affected by this terrible event. We would like to offer our thanks to all volunteers and guests who wanted to demonstrate peacefully with us. Many of these people suffered much emotional stress yesterday. What they experienced will have long-lasting effects. We are trying to offer emotional support, psychological support. This is needed for our team as well. I'm grateful to my team. Thank you. We are grateful to all people who assisted, all first responders. Our mayor has rightly praised the collaboration with the police. Their quick professional response was decisive in this context. We are also grateful to the Fire Brigade, Berlin Senate, all authorities who have been involved in this collaboration. The CSD organization in Berlin stands for solidarity, respect, coexistence. A city open to the world was on the street yesterday. What we need now, we believe, is to take a measured approach to support everyone affected. We will not get involved with any speculation. We will wait for the result of the police investigation. Our basic approach has not changed. We reject all forms of violence. Ideologies, be they religious or other extremists, are trying to suppress people. We do not want this deed to be instrumentalized for political ends. We don't want any groups to be placed under suspicion for this.
Yeah, we don't want. So we don't want any groups to be placed under suspicion. We don't want this to be politicized in any way. Even though the murderers always just take a lot of pride in politicizing it and making it very clear what it is. So suicidal. Then again, if I am constructing a psychological profile of liberals like this, it is about embracing various forms of suicide. Feminism is suicide. LGBT culture, communism as an economic system, as we were talking about before, is suicide. They all represent short-lived parties that end in very sad, bitter ways. And the party is largely over. Party is largely over because you cannot have a cell without walls. You cannot have... The form is a very important thing for everything. For constructing logical, consistent thought, for building a standing structure, you need to have some form. I mean, everything. It's very important. And in that world, there is no form. There is only craziness. But that's the point, because liberals are sadomasochists. Inflicting and receiving pain and humiliation is sexually thrilling to them. It's psychosexual. Maybe it doesn't register as, like a sexy kind of a thing, but psychologically it's like, ooh, yeah. I don't know. There's something about the inflicting and receiving of pain and LARPing about as being someone who is either under attack or actually creating these conditions where you are under attack because you feel that that's where you are most yourself. I don't know what the fuck it is, but that's what I take away from this. And unfortunately, they turned their kinks into public policy, and now everyone suffers. But for how long is the question? For how long? And the memes, they write themselves. Of course, we have the eternal Norm Macdonald from December 15th of 2016. What terrifies me is if ISIS were to detonate a nuclear device and kill 50 million Americans, imagine the backlash against peaceful Muslims. The eternal Norm Macdonald, ladies and gentlemen. Or this one. What do you mean you don't like being mowed down? Yes, the sneering face of the modern Western female who has gladly taken the role of Kevorkian, Mengele, and your average Japanese kamikaze pilot and mix them all into one. This is a very, very, very serious problem. Very serious problem. Way too much autonomy, way too many rights. There's way too many rights in this picture. Too many rights are present. And that is what these also at the molten core of the Shiloh trial as well, when it comes to the kind of decision making of the courts, especially when they are being run by liberal judges, both male and female. But boy, oh boy, we also know just by the way that Amy Coney Barrett has come forward with the way that she has really seen her role play out. Her role really takes shape in the middle of all of the chaos, the political chaos in this country, and what that really means about her decision making. What does her safety really mean? If she's going to go out there and do the right thing, is it going to put her and her family in danger? So how does she adjust her decision making? One must ask the question. They must ask the question. Here's from the Post-Millennial. Shiloh Hendricks' attorney vows to appeal guilty verdict after Minnesota mom convicted over calling man the N-word as he filmed, taunted her at the playground. Okay? And for those of you who don't remember, this is the mom in Minnesota who she was at the playground with her son, I take it, and she had something stolen out of her bag by a young black kid there. Was later said to be autistic or whatever the hell it was. But at first, she had something taken from her bag. She's running after the kid. She's trying to get what she had back. She uttered a slur. She uttered the slur, which is just becoming actually a piece of comedy at this point. It's becoming less and less serious and more of a piece of comedy. She uttered the slur, and then she started getting harassed by this guy who was just an onlooker. And it happened to be a sexual, a sex offender as well, who never got any jail time. Okay. And she was harassed by this guy afterwards and filmed, and she just let it loose at that point. It was just N-bomb after N-bomb. And you know what? Listen, you don't have to defend her. You say, hey, you know what? I would never act like that in public. It's unbecoming, and she looks awful and whatever. Or you can say, understand her frustration and whatever, and it's words. It's your reputation. You want to put yourself out there, but one way or another, if you don't like the way she conducted herself, it's not a crime. It's not a crime, and there's a split decision here about disorderly conduct. Disorderly conduct toward the child, not guilty. Disorderly conduct toward this guy who was filming her and essentially baiting her and goading her and staying on top of and harassing her and all that shit. Guilty on that front. And she was given a 90-day sentence that was kind of like stayed. She has $1,000 of that she has to pay in a fine and 200 hours of community service and all that stuff. But it's and from what I have been reading and the people I was talking to as well, including Megan Fox and a couple of others behind the scenes, that this is not only going to be appealed, but she's probably going to win it. It just goes to show who we're dealing with. And what the priorities are when it comes to things like speech. You do not have to sit here and get into whether or not racial epithets for white, black, brown people, whatever the hell it is. Even though we know nobody gives a shit if you racially attack a white person. We understand that there too. So we're seeing this play out in the normal judicial hierarchy of needs when it comes to the liberal worldview and how that is manifesting in the judicial system, where there are far too many of these judges that need to be dealt with somehow. How the hell do you get them out? Of course, Minnesota is going to have to answer those questions, but that's just a big part of it all. Following the split verdict in the Shiloh Hendricks case that was handed down on Thursday night, her attorney, Brian Carolus, criticized the decision to find her guilty of disorderly conduct as it relates to the cameraman who filmed the viral 2025 Minnesota playground incident. Carolus said that they intended to appeal the verdict. The case centered around Hendricks, a mother who had gone to the playground in Rochester, Minnesota in April of 2025. The incident began when a young autistic boy being accused of stealing something from Hendricks's diaper bag, with Hendricks calling the boy the N-word. A third party filmed the incident, taunting her and capturing Hendricks saying the word over and over again on camera, and that became the big story. Just like the kid that just got killed, murdered by the Sikh in London, which is already old news for everybody but his family, of course, that he was kept handcuffed the entire time while he was bleeding out, because the more important part was we had to ascertain whether or not he called the Sikh a naughty name. Not the fact that the Sikh is standing up and his knife is in somebody else's neck. A lot of that going on. Speaking on the verdict, Carlos said, I think it's pathetic. I think it's sad. I think it's sick. I think shocked. I never had a trial where they keep people. This is a misdemeanor, by the way, until 10:30 at night. Never heard of that one before, he said. That keeping the jurors so late was bizarre. Let's make something very clear. She's acquitted, not guilty, right? Not guilty with the child. The state reads a 5-minute victim impact statement about the child. She was acquitted about the child. She convicted on the count involving the cameraman. Well, they never called to testify him to testify. Keep this in mind. They never called the cameraman to testify. And I think I have his statements. Have his statements over here. Take a listen to this.
Okay, I'll give you another one. Okay, you ready for this? You ready for this one? He pretends he doesn't speak English. We have him on fucking video, on camera, pictures, sitting out right where you people are sitting, talking to the prosecutors. The two prosecutors talking to him right where you're sitting. No interpreter. Talking for minutes. No interpreter. No interpreter. He speaks English, folks. This is a fraud. But keep going. Let's go. What else?
I got two follow-ups. One.
Yep. Keep going.
I was wondering.
And you're not going to put in your paper or whatever thing you're part of. You're all part of the shakedown. This media is BS bullshit. Then print the truth. Print the truth. The judge refused to allow the jury to see the GoFundMe page. Print the truth.
So it's a claim about perjury, about the GoFundMe page of the cameraman was not active, which it was. Which, of course, perjury is one of those things where it's, I don't know how many times people are actually rung up on that. But anyway, all of that's going on. She was stolen from, recorded, baited by a sex offender who was not allowed. And here again, here's the judge. This is from Dark Garbaggio over on Instagram. Put this nice carousel together. By L. Reynolds Purnell. Thread, the judge who sentenced Shiloh Hendricks to a 90-day stayed jail sentence, 200 hours of community service, probation, and a $1,000 fine for using the N-word has a history of giving sex offenders no jail time. In January of 23, she gave probation and community service to a man for possessing child sex abuse materials. She, quote, did order him to serve 2 days in jail, but credited him with 2 days for time served. How nice of her. In August of 24, she sentenced a man who sexually assaulted a teen to probation and $3,373 in restitution as part of a plea deal. Well, $3,000 ought to cover it. In December of 24, Judge Daly granted a stay of imposition to a woman convicted of sexual assault without withholding sentencing and allowing the conviction to be downgraded if the woman successfully completed a previous probation for a previous sexual assault. Just staggering. But the N-word, oh boy. In 2023, she gave a jail sentence of only 30 days to a man who sexually assaulted a 9-year-old girl. His jail sentence could, quote, be served on work release, according to local news. He also received probation and in-home monitoring. Well, that seems fair. The judge's name is Krista Daly. Hendricks' attorney said that he felt it was like fighting the prosecutor and the judge in the Hendricks trial. This is just all over the place. This is all over the place. And just another example of sleepy Minnesota. I know we got a lot of wonderful audience members out there in Minnesota who understand the situation. Used to be one of the most unremarkable, albeit beautiful, from what you guys have shown me, your states, the lakes, and all that other stuff out there in Minnesota. But that used to just be one of those places where what the hell happens up there? The Twins? Twins don't do shit. The Vikings aren't worth a shit either. It was just a sleepy ass place. Now we realize that it's just Mogadishu, and it's crazy. It's all just crazy. Then we have a little something over here that is unfolding in Troy, New York that I see. This is from Matt Van Swol, put this out on Twitter. An insane story is unfolding in Troy, New York, where a mayor, we're going back to the flock cameras, who overrode her own city council's vote to end their flock camera contract by declaring a public emergency, is now fuming after citizens began cutting down the cameras. I don't understand what the hell. You see, I can't wait to get a little bit more into this, because of course, like, you know, people are choosing the flock cameras. There is momentum behind it. Obviously, it is only scratching the surface of the way that we are surveilled day in, day out. But especially when you think about where these cameras are really being employed, is there any statements, any thoughts or theories as to how this is going to better help, you know, crime reduction or something like that? Like, what is the actual point? What is the actual point here? The female mayor said that the cutting down of the cameras was an act of violence and is begging the public to help identify who did it. See, there you go. There's the act of violence thing. You know, going back to the Shiloh Hendricks situation, what they brought up is a legal term called fighting words. That to use a racial slur, of course, this goes down to just like hate crime level subjectivity. Who is most offended and who has a right to be more offended, and what are the political sensibilities of the judge, the jury, and all that other stuff? Fighting words. I chuckled when I saw that. The use of fighting words. And then you have people over here. How many times have we heard that one thing or another is an act of violence? An act of violence against whom? An act of violence against the flock camera. The flock camera has feelings or some level of autonomy that even, I don't know. They are willing to categorize a taking down of a flock camera as an act of violence, but abortion, on the other hand. This is Troy, New York. Troy's own city council, the elected representatives of the people, voted to stop the flock contract over privacy concerns. They ordered the funding withheld. So what did the mayor do? She literally declared a public emergency to keep the surveillance cameras running anyway. Why? It's so odd. It's so odd how touchy-feely, grabby everybody is between the flock cameras, and that's something else that Trump has, the president has rubbed a lot of people the wrong way lately, about just accepting the data centers. Just accept it. Roll over and take it. People are like, I don't want these things in my backyard. I don't want this thing humming over my shoulder. I don't want to give up farmland for this. Especially when it's being sold through complete lies that it's going to be the future economy. It's going to employ tens of thousands of people for all time. When at the same time, they're talking about all the technologies that are going to be made possible by these data centers are going to be able to ensure that nobody has to work. How do you make any of that? Like, you know, again, messaging is very, very big. We don't need to know all the inside baseball. When the messaging there's no syllogism, there's no logical consistency there. It is enough to say, I don't trust any of this shit, and I want you out of my house. I don't want what you're selling. I don't know how the gears behind the face of the clock actually work. I wouldn't be able to put it together myself, but I don't want the clock. She declared a public emergency, this mayor did, to keep the surveillance cameras running. So just to be clear, the people's representative said that the flock cams, the mayor forced them to stay up, declaring emergency. She's now being sued by her own city council over it. The council is so alarmed that they're trying to strip her power and declare emergencies at all. Let's see what's here. News Channel 13 from Troy.
Mayor calls this an act of violence that was done by an unhinged individual. The vandals struck at 3 separate locations in the Collar City, Automated license plate reading cameras, ALPRs, also referred to as flock cameras, were destroyed sometime overnight at a time when these cameras have stirred up a great deal of controversy in the city.
There's been a nationwide concern about flock cameras. Some people feel like they need to take matters into their own hands when their government is not. It's unfortunate.
Deirdre Shea is with the organization Deflock Troy, a group that has been involved in a concerted effort for there to be reasonable guidelines and oversight for the data collected by the cameras.
If these cameras help police solve crimes, if they help them take bad people off the streets, you could argue that that's a good thing.
Absolutely, but there has to be balance, right? And right now that this technology is totally unrestricted and can be used without a warrant, right? Do you want somebody to be following you around town without a warrant? You want there to be probable cause.
You know what? The whole problem, this whole thing is, don't you want crime to be reduced? Police policies that are coming from city councils, town councils, those are the biggest hindrance for all this stuff. There's more than enough ways of tracking a person. There's more than enough ways of placing a person in a certain place at the time of a crime. You have all different categories of cell phone data. You have all different types of incidental ways that people are picked up on cameras as they're driving or walking around town. There is so much aside from just basic detective work that is, it has always been effective, of being able to interview people and piece things together and be able to find out, how random an act is, what it might be connected to. There is so much out there to be able to put people behind bars. And to say that this extra layer of camera is going to be the X factor, when the real thing is that we are a culture that is largely shirking our responsibility to prosecute criminals and put them behind bars. I don't think anybody has any real problem. We are. It seems pretty simple. Seems like we have more than enough resources to find people who have done things and put them behind bars, of getting to the truth of a matter, finding a suspect, tracking them down through technology or human resources or whatever the hell it is. The real question is, do we have the balls to even, no bail, no bond. We don't even do that anymore. Catch and release. Oh, that would be wonderful. You don't need more cameras. Telling you. It's very creepy. And I know that on the face of it, the flock cameras is only the tip of the iceberg. But of course, this wherever we can find some friction points to make some kind of progress, this is real progress. That's real progress there. People find something. Maybe they can link arms on something else. In other words, a liberal white female girl boss mayor decided she doesn't need the consent of the governed. Oh, there she is. Yeah, I can see that. I can see it. God. You know what I'm thinking? Yep. Add her to the no rights list. She's got to go to the no rights list. It's all over. Can't take it anymore. None of us can. None of us can. All right, let me go to check on Rumble, see what's going on over there. Nephilim says, cheers, Frank, cheers. Cheers, chat. It feels good to catch a show live again. Let's go, dude. Thank you so much. Red Pill 78 rated this stream. Thank you, Zach. I wonder if that's because Zach saw that I was wearing a Hawaiian shirt on Saturday night. And almost like an ode to him on all the Saturday nights that we used to have back in the day. Saturday, let's see here. Jay Semo says, great show as usual. Excellent guest, Frank. Cheers. Thank you, Jay. It's great to have you out there. Nephilim again says, cheers, Frank. I want to trust the plan, but then I think about the Bolshevik Revolution and Operation Trust, and we know how that went for everyone. Yeah, well, never trust a Bolshevik. Never trust a Bolshevik. That's number one. All right, over on Pilled, Let me see how people are doing over there. We're going to be getting off in a couple of minutes here because I want to make sure that we. I'll leave the super chat the lines open just for a couple more minutes if you want to call in and leave a couple of end of show comments before we jump off to session 3 of book club for Huckleberry Finn. Last week is the last week. Next week is the last week. In August, we are going to be watching Terminator 1 and Terminator 2 for Film Club. If you've never been part of a watch party, these watch parties, along with the book club and so many other things, they are so worth sponsoring the show and being part of the Culture Club. The minimum is $5 just to get into the Culture Club and get all of the universal perks and all the bonus streams and stuff like that. I definitely need people to sign up on Patreon and Subscribestar for the Station ID sponsorship, though. If anybody wants to make Station IDs, I want you guys to be the ones going, hey, this is so-and-so, and you're watching Quite Frankly. Now, whatever, then do a cannonball into into a pool or something like that, or I have no clue. I would love to get some Station ID sponsors. I just realized that had gone cold, and we weren't playing any more Station IDs, and I want to fluff that back up again. But on Patreon, it's 65% off your first month until August 4th. So it would be wonderful to have you on. There's so many extra things over there, including, I should have told you guys this. Today, the latest installation of the Quite Frankly Classics podcast have been uploaded. And today, this is what was shared around midday. It was an October 5th, 2015 episode, CC Sabathia and the OCC shooting featuring Matt. This is the first show of what is going to be very many that Matt. This is Matt from 2015. You want to hear Matt even before you guys ever knew of him? You want to see how unhinged he really was? CC Sabathia and the OCC shooting. What's in this episode? Joined by Matt Militiaman in the on the couch and a call from Johnny Vroom on Tumblr, just old friends. We open with a discussion on the New York Yankees pitcher CC Sabathia. I think this was a funny one, who checked into rehab at that point. And then we talk about sports, drugs, government oversight. We jump into the deep end of the pool by dissecting the OCC shooting. Leftist media attempt to flip all of the facts about the shooting to fit racial, political, and religious, gender-based narratives, and, of course, gun control. Wow, things really don't change. But it's more so about building the lore and hearing an old episode with Matt and me and everybody else. And it's only, like I said, these old episodes are less than an hour long, 54 minutes right there. And you're getting 10 of these a month. We're going to be building that up for a couple of years now. You're going to love these. Become a member on Patreon, especially. This is where this is exclusively. It's the only place that has the infrastructure to host a private podcast collection. So get on over there, and I'd love to have you on. You're going to love this episode. I have to go listen to it myself because I can't imagine what Matt says. That's always the fun part. Okay, what else do we have? What else do we have? Hold on. Here we go. Corey, thank you. Silly Boar, Clouded Casey, Squickly, Doodah Man says, good evening, Frank. Mota. Lynn says, great guest. Have him on again for a longer segment, please and thank you. If he'll come back, that'd be great. Brewbark says, does Michael have any inside information about efforts to repeal the 22nd Amendment? Email me. Any follow-up questions, email me, especially for people, especially if you're a skeptic on the timeline to what Promethean Action thinks that we're building toward. Because I want to see what you guys are thinking, and it might yield some really interesting answers. Swickly says, more for the RV fund. Thank you. We have more than enough time to plan. Doodah Man says, that was one of the best interviews I've ever witnessed. I'm not blowing smoke. You asked excellent questions eloquently. Right on, and Mike is brilliant. Well, thank you, Doodah. Ginster, thank you. Safety Net, a wee bit of gold for the goal. JR at the Lake just gifted a 1-month bronze tier subscription, you see. Let's take a call from Zoso. What's going on, man?
Frank, I got the craziest 4th of July story for you ever.
Go.
So, I did a show, my classic rock show on Saturday, 4th of July. Was really looking forward to that evening. Mrs. Zoe and I were supposed to get together and go to a party, see some ass-kicking fireworks, 250th. I called in the night before, if you recall. I was all excited about the 4th of July.
Yes.
So after my show, I run up to see a buddy of mine because he's trying to get a job with us. And on my way there, I dropped my phone for a second. So I reached down in my lap or at my feet and I pick it up. And in that half second I did that, I drifted very close to the center line and I pulled back. And I live out in the rural country, Frank. So there was a car coming the other way. He was at least a 16th of a mile away. So there wasn't any question of problem. But I pulled back into my lane and continued down. I drive across town, over the freeway, take a little teeny side road about 5 miles away. And the next thing you know, I'm getting pulled over by a cop from the jurisdiction back where I almost crossed over the line. And the man said that he got called by an off-duty officer who said I was literally all over the road. And the only way that they could have found me was with these flock cameras, because as I said, I live in a very rural place out in the middle of nowhere. And his reason for pulling me over, because he didn't see me do this. He's going by the word of another off-duty officer. What I did do in front of him, which caused him to pull me over, was I made a left-hand turn from a left-hand turn lane without using my indicator, which netted me a $265 ticket for careless driving. Now, what is insane about this is, meanwhile, across town, 10 miles away, a block from my house, my old lady is driving home in her 3/4-ton Dodge pickup. She drops her phone for a second, goes to get it, slightly goes off the road, go down into a ditch, overcorrects, rolls her truck, takes out a row of mailboxes, and hits a telephone pole upside down so hard she snapped the telephone pole off at its base like a toothpick. She also got a ticket for careless driving, and we're both going to the same judge in the same court on the same day at the same time. And I can't wait to see what this guy says when he looks at the two of us, sees our driver's licenses, sees that we live at the same address, but we both got the same ticket on the opposite ends of town at the same time. It's insane. Dude, I want to chop down all of those flock cameras. There's just, steaming over this.
You could also just drive straight. You could do that. Yeah. You're just swerving all over the place. Gee, does your wife have the same, she took out property and stuff. Is she getting charged the same as you, the $260?
No, she got a $440 ticket.
Good Lord. Listen, first of all, thankfully you guys are all right. She rolled the car, so that's...
She destroyed her truck. It's totaled. Jeez. She broke a rib and was hanging upside down when they pulled her out of it. It was nothing. Frank, if she'd have hit the phone pole with her driver door instead of the rear door behind her, she wouldn't be here right now. So it's. I'm very thankful. I'm very grateful. But God, it pisses me off. That was my 4th of July.
It's too bad you can't stream. It's too bad you can't put a GoPro on you live so we can stream the whole trial. That's a trial I want to see.
I might just record it for fun.
Well, don't get yourself in trouble there too. But thank you for the call, man. It's great to hear from you.
All right.
Well, thank you.
Later.
Thank God he's all right. Thank God he's all right. There's the 4th of July, crazy weekend. But the flock cams, does everybody have a right to have a close one? And should it just be like, if the cop's not there, then go ahead and digest what you just almost had happen to you and make sure it doesn't happen again. One of those come to Jesus moments. Not Your Mom says, love the guest. Sentinel says, thanks for having PA on today. I was late arrival, so I have to go back and catch the whole interview. Fun fact, my local electric company paid me and 9 other people $100 today to answer questions about my concerns about my electric bill. Oh, that'd be great. I'd love to get $100 off our electric bill over here, especially during the summer when the ACs are going. Damn, it's like near $400 for the studio. Molly Artie says, what I see is that flock camera cutting in the beginning of the Civil War, not a bloody one, but one that will be against authoritarian technology. Well, maybe that is it. Maybe that was the spark that we needed. Well, I have some other crazy shit that I wanted to do with you, but it is 8:50, and I need to prepare myself for book club. I really appreciate you guys. It has been a great night. Tomorrow night is going to be good. It's going to be very good. I don't tell anybody who's coming up anymore. Well, sometimes I do, but I don't post the guest calendar anymore. Just show up and see what happens. I'll take care of everything, and sometimes I don't, and that's where we go. Esperanza Vance Tarot says, much love and thanks. God bless, and always happy to catch a live. Well, thank you, Esperanza. It's great to have you out there, and thank you for the wonderful super chat. I appreciate that. Anyway, tomorrow will be another good one. Thank you for the time tonight. Thank you again to Mike from Promethean Action. And that's that. All right? Become a sponsor. Check out that first episode from 2015 posted with good old Matt on the couch, which means that he was probably there blazing. Sup, bro? And I was probably stoned too. I don't know. There's going to be a lot of giggles. If it's very giggly, then it's probably that's just the way it was. I'm going to go listen to it now. And again, tomorrow, I will see you guys here. Same time, same place. Thank you for everything. And I'll check you later.
I'll catch you on the flip side.
All right. Quite Frankly is filmed before a live studio. Lo Studio. And now our super chatters. Starring Esperanza Vance Tarot, Jay Britz, Hello Kitty, Ginny Yankee Fan, Stumble Boots, Katie Sky, Hello Kitty again, and to all of our friends over there on Rumble and all of our friends over there on Pilled. It has been a fantastic evening. I'm looking forward to tomorrow in a big, big way. For now, it's time to settle in for a little bit of a book club with Charlie Robinson. So if you guys are a member of the Culture Club, get your books ready. I'll see you in a bit.
A kitty cat.
You're a kitty cat?
Your turn.
Hello. I'm a kitty cat as well.